Okay, so welcome everyone to TAN. And we have a wonderful marketing meeting today. And I am having trouble pulling up one of my documents. So that is my hesitation. And I would actually, because I'm having that trouble, I'm going to shift the plan a little bit. I am going to ask Kelly Kepke to give her own bio.
Oh,
Please,
geez.
Kelly, you're the first speaker.
I guess I better find it, huh?
I had it already. Sorry about that. This is one of those days.
Let me see if I can find what I sent you.
All right. How about while you're looking, Allison, are you ready to go with yours? You're not ready to
No,
go
I
with
found it. I
You
found it. I
Okay.
found it. So imagine Anne saying this. Kelly Kepke has over 20 years experience bringing creativity and vitality to business writing projects for her clients around the world. She helps businesses small and large, profit and not-for-profit, better communicate to their customers via website copy, newsletters, blogs, social media press releases, and ghost-written articles. She also contributes to a variety of publications.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay. And I have Allison Reyes here, I believe. Okay. All right. Allison Ray is the principal from SoFar Creative. Allison's career in marketing communication spans nearly 3 decades. Her clients have included well-known Fortune and Inc. companies, as well as private firms and public sector agencies. She established her virtual agency, now Soulfire Creative, in 1997. Drawing on extensive corporate and ad agency experience, Allison loves the challenge of meeting her clients' business goals with creative marketing solutions. She especially enjoys designing websites, which she's been doing since the early days of the internet. Her marketing expertise fuels every aspect of her work, from planning and strategy through custom web design, branding, and photography. Allison is supported by a team of highly experienced tech and creative professionals in Southern California and throughout the Southwest. Specialties include video production, graphic design, content creation, social media, and digital advertising. And Diane Villegas is a native New Mexican and owner of Big Picture Marketing Strategies, a marketing consultancy agency that assists businesses in creating effective and strategic marketing plans. Prior to opening her agency, Diane held leadership positions with Comcast as Southwest Regional Director of Marketing and at the Reels channel as Vice President of Affiliate Marketing. Diane holds an MBA from the University of New Mexico, and in 2014, she was selected as an honoree of Albuquerque Business First's Top 40 Under 40 Award. Yay, Diane. And with that, we will start with Kelly Kepke, and she is going to introduce her first topic.
Yeah, so the title of this panel is Marketing Your Business in a Post-COVID World. And the idea is that right around this time last year, COVID became part of our world. And here in New Mexico in March, it became our world. It shut down businesses, it prevented travel, it made doing business more difficult, and for some of us, impossible. If you were a retailer, you were shut for several weeks. If you were a service provider that relied on communicating with the public in person, you couldn't do your job. And that forced many of us to pivot and have to think about, how do we do business in a new way when we are confined from meeting people in person, whether as a retailer, a restaurant, or a service provider. For some of us, like Allison and me, who have been doing business virtually for years, it really wasn't much of a shift. We are used to being on the phone, using email, using features like Zoom to communicate with our customers, and having an online presence that is accessible and understandable for people who want to find us. But for many of us, that wasn't the case. And so when we were coming up with this topic, it's how do we even get our minds around doing business in a world that has been constricted and confined by a pandemic? Which, by the way, is going to continue for many more months as vaccines roll out and we deal with the changing business world. So the first thing that we wanted to talk about as panelists is marketing mindset. What does that actually mean? I'm gonna I'm gonna share my screen. Share my screen. Start this presentation. So marketing your business in a post-COVID world, what does that mean? Having a marketing mindset, what does that mean? A marketing mindset means that you are always thinking about how your business interacts with the marketplace. Because marketing principles never change, right? The idea that you have a product or service to provide to someone, that you are pricing it according to what the market will bear, that you are promoting it in areas that people will find, and that you are providing service after the sale that is appropriate to what you have just provided, if that's a service or a product. Those principles don't change. It doesn't matter whether you're a retailer or a restaurant or someone who provides a service, and you can do that remotely. Though, again, those principles don't change. In fact, marketing isn't even a thing that you do. It's a way that you think about your business. It's a way that you think about how your business interacts with its customers, with its advocates, with the marketplace generally. So one of the things that we were talking about in the panel as we were discussing this is that a lot of people just think marketing is a line item on an expense form, and that's not the case. You can budget for marketing and the tasks that go with marketing, and Allison's going to talk about that later in the presentation. But the idea that it is only an expense and it's an expense to be cut in times of lean and beefed up in times of plenty is just flat out wrong. So we want to dispel that notion right away. Because tactics don't equal marketing. So all the things you see on your screen, advertising, social media, newsletters, websites, press releases, giveaways, word of mouth, those are all tactics that market your business, but they aren't marketing. Marketing, again, is branding. It's the brand you present to the public. It's the strategy you use to get customers. It's the way that you interact with your customers before, during, and after a sale. So all of the things on the screen here that say tactics, that's what they are. Those are the things that we think of as marketing, but they are not marketing. They are elements of marketing. When you start to shift your mindset to think about marketing as all of the things that your business does in the marketplace, you become thoughtful, you become strategic, and you become like very big companies who have staff that all they think about is how do we market this company. The marketers don't think about strategy, or they do in terms of how are we going to market the company, but marketing the company includes the engineers to build a product. They are the customer service people that pick up the phone, that provide service after the fact. So when you start to think about that, marketing as a mindset, you sort of, the whole world opens to you, and you can understand how your business is perceived and how you want it to be perceived. And Allison, again, is going to talk about a lot of that in branding. So marketing, again, is all of the activities that surround your business. It's branding and messaging. It's how you want your company to be perceived and the words you use to present your company to the public. It's strategy and planning, and those go hand in hand. It's how do I want to get my message out, and what elements am I going to do that? And it's also, again, promotion and pricing, and those are all elements of the marketing mix. And it's, again, sales and service. It's what happens when someone gives you money and after someone gives you money. This entire process is marketing. So that is a little bit about what the marketing mindset is, and that is going to inform what Allison is going to say next about strategy and branding.
I guess that was the segue. Thank you, Kelly.
Yes, it was.
Nice overview. And just to reiterate, when we talk about the marketing mindset, I would love for everybody to think less about marketing as something that you do and instead as a way that you approach your business. In fact, in thinking about talking about this today with everybody and collaborating with Kelly and Diane about it all, I really believe that marketing should be the guiding force of your business. It is C-level. It's something that you, as the CEO of your company, or your client as the CEO of their company, always need to be thinking about. And it kind of shifts your perspective about what you think of when you think of marketing, right? Because in the very most basic sense, marketing is how your product or service meets the market. And if you're really good at it, like thinking back in the old days of Henry Ford, remember that guy? Or more recently, Steve Jobs, that guy? Those guys were marketing geniuses, right? They had a vision. They pioneered life-changing products. They were innovators. And the thing that made them really brilliant marketers is these were things that never existed before, and they made us believe we needed them. That's really good marketing, right? They were the innovators that anticipated and even created demand. They succeeded. They changed our lives. They changed the way we live our lives. We didn't have cars before the early days of automobiles, and we didn't have, we used to have Walkmans, right? And then we had iPods, and suddenly you had an iPod that was also a phone, or a phone that was also an iPod, and then it became a million other things, and it's a pocket computer, right? I didn't grow up with that. Did any of you? Some of you may have. But that's not the world I knew when I was born into it, right? So that's all because somebody like a Steve Jobs or a Henry Ford knew that they had something of value and somehow took it to market. Another person that I like to think of when I think in terms of branding, especially, is Oprah Winfrey. She has built an entire empire out of her beginnings as a TV reporter in Baltimore, right? And apparently she got fired from that first job or demoted. So she didn't start out as the queen of everything in terms of the broadcast world. She started out very humbly and built through her vision and through her genius of understanding branding and really living and breathing the brand and having a vision for where she wanted to be in life and what she wanted to do in her life. And really has become, to me, an elevated example of marketing genius. So everybody can think about, how does your business, how does your product or service line up with that kind of marketing, right? Be constantly thinking about how your product or service is meeting the market, and what do you need to do to bring it to the level that you can envision. So how did these people like Henry Ford or Steve Jobs or Oprah Winfrey, how'd they do it? Do you think that they spent all day, every day, posting on Facebook about cars or iPods or talk shows? I don't think they did. In fact, I can tell you that they didn't, because most of them weren't around. Some of them weren't even around when that stuff was going on. But that is the tactical stuff, like Kelly said, like the social media, the email blasts, your website, your SEO, your advertising, all of those things are tactics. They are marketing activities. Most businesses, including I think a lot of people in this room and myself included, from time to time, we go jumping into the marketing activities thinking that we need to get busy because we don't have enough in our pipeline, right? And we jump into those marketing activities and spend a lot of time on it without a plan. And that can really result in wasted time and even money if you're budgeting for it. and it can be ineffective. You're much more likely to succeed if you make a plan. And part of any good plan begins with strategy, right? Also the branding, of course, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Once you know who you are, how you're going to differentiate your offering in the marketplace, and have goals and metrics in place, then you can make a tactical plan. And Diane is going to talk about the tactical plan. She's really good at that. But first, you got to know what your strategy is. It's how you're going to position yourself relative to the other businesses that offer the same thing you do. Is there anybody here today that doesn't have a competitor out there? Like you're the only one in the whole wide world that offers what you offer. Raise your hand if you're the only one. Okay, guess what? Then you need to think competitively and you need to think strategically. Mark, I saw you smiling, Lori. Lori and a number of us in the room all do something really, really similar, and we know that we have competition out there. So the question becomes, how are you going to differentiate yourself and gain market share, right? Your piece of the pie in a competitive environment. So you've got to think about things like your vision. You need to do market research. You need to think about the demographics and psychographics of your ideal clients or customers. You need to do a competitive analysis and find out what your competitors are doing. You need measurable goals. You got to think about differentiation and positioning. You got to think about your messaging, which Kelly's going to talk about in a few minutes. You need to think about your unique selling proposition, the needs you fill, the pain points you address, the tangible benefit to the customer or the client. That is a lot to think about, right, Earl? It's also really important. Taking the time to do your homework and plot a strategy, it greatly increases your chance of success. It's how big companies get to be big. They do this absolutely all the time ad nauseum, and it's why I don't like working with big companies anymore. They do a little too much of it, in my opinion, but they also got really, really big, right? So we take those same ideas, those same principles, and we scale them to the level of smaller businesses, which tends to be the people in the room today and the people we work with, small to mid-sized businesses, even solo entrepreneurs. So the marketing strategy piece is the same for all of us. The principles are the same. The other thing is, once you have a marketing strategy and you know what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, it doesn't stay the same, right? We have to adapt to changing market conditions all the time. And if there's ever a time that we learned that lesson in a big way, it was 2020, right? Everybody had to look at their business and figure out how they needed to adapt or how they needed to change, maybe change their marketing strategy, maybe change their budget. Think about how your marketing strategy and your client's marketing strategy had to shift in response to the pandemic. And then there's the big branding piece, and we've done whole presentations just on the branding piece. It's the most favorite part of mine about marketing. I love it. When you think about brand, and we've talked about this before in a TAN education meeting, a lot of people think that's sort of the logo or something else that isn't exactly what marketing people think about when we say branding or brand. It's when you guys think of like the company's name, the logo, the tagline, the colors, maybe the way that a space is designed, the uniforms that your employees wear and so forth, those are all visual representations of the brand, but they're not the brand itself. Your brand is the essence of your business. Think about that. It's it's not super substantial in terms of I can really define that, which is why it's really important to take the time to figure out what it means for your company, for your business. Your brand is the essence of your business. It's who you are in the marketplace. It's what you stand for and how people perceive you. It's your values. It's your relationship with your customers and your vendors. All of that adds up to your brand. So it's really important to define and cultivate your brand so you stand out from the crowd. You have to figure out how you're different. And this is part of the strategy too. We generally put all of that into the big marketing plan that is also going to include the tactics, the timeline, and the budget that Diane's going to talk about. But first, the strategy drives the tactics. And before we even get into the tactics, I think it's really important to take a look at the messaging and how we're going to express that brand consistently in terms of communicating with your various audiences. And Kelly's going to take over on that piece.
Thank you,
Mm.
Allison. I
Mute
just
myself.
want to interject for a second. And that is, if you guys have any questions, please type them into the chat and I'll be monitoring the questions.
Great. Thanks, Anne. Yeah, so thanks, Allison. Yes, so messaging is a natural result of branding, right? It is the thing, and I'm going to click in here again. I should have made 2 presentations instead of just 1. It is the thing that comes from the essence of your business. It is the thing that you want most to communicate with the world. And we all recognize really good messaging when we hear it and see it, right? We all know what Geico's tagline is, right? They have their gecko, and he says it all the time. It's 15 minutes or less can save you 15% on your car insurance. That's their message, and they stick to it. We all know that Nike's messaging is just do it. That's a tagline, but that is really what they want you to do with their shoes and clothes and everything that they do. They want you to be active and just get out and, you know, and do it. Subway's messaging is all about fresh and quick, and so their tagline is eat fresh, right? That's a message they want to convey, that they provide fresh food quickly to you and it's going to do you good. So, but mixed messaging, of course, confuses people. We've all dealt with companies that have a different persona on one social media site and on another social media site, and the messages just go at cross purposes, or we don't understand the messaging at all. And it's even worse when employees don't understand the messaging. When they don't understand the essence of the company, then they become poor ambassadors for the company as well. So consistent messaging is what you're looking for, and that involves communicating the same message across all platforms. The wording can be different, but the message is the same. So when you look at a Geico ad that talks about 15% off on your car insurance for 15 minutes, that messaging carries through no matter what platform that they're on. And what does that mean in plain English? That means that everybody understands the message. So how do you do that, right? How do you do that? So one of the ways is that you pick the right words, right? You pick the words that are true to your values. And you ask yourself every time, are these words true to my values? And you avoid jargon, because jargon are all of the industry specific words that we all use when we're talking to our peers. So when marketers are talking, we're talking about click-through rates and return on investment and product placement, and we're talking about all of those words that relate to something that we do. When accountants talk, they talk about fiduciary responsibility and they talk about KPIs and they talk about all kinds of crazy finance words. But if you're not part of that club, you don't understand what those words mean. So the most powerful phrase you can use is to say, do I understand this? And does my audience understand this? And I like to use sort of the grandmother test. If you want your messaging to be clear, go tell your grandma what your message is. And if she doesn't understand it, neither does your customer. So avoiding jargon is definitely key in relating to your audience. And then, of course, keep it simple. So keep it simple, stupid. No mixed or multiple messages, because that's just going to confuse people. And that's not what you want. You don't want confusing messages. So clear, concise, consistent, and everywhere is what you're going for with your messaging. You're going for clarity. There's no mistaking just do it, right? It's 2 words, it's clear, it's concise, it's consistent, and it's everywhere for Nike. So I'm going to stop sharing that and come back and say, so I guess the key takeaway here is, does your messaging help convey your core idea, the core idea of your company, the essence of your company? Essence is the word that Allison used, which I love. And all of this messaging comes directly out of your branding and strategy. Yeah. So what we've been talking so far a lot about philosophy. We've talking about marketing mindset, strategy and branding and messaging. And that's all very high level, 10,000 feet look at your business. What everybody likes to talk about, of course, is tactics and how do you implement those things that you've been talking about over here. And Diane Villegas is going to talk about those kinds of things. So
Well, I'm
Diane?
going to tease a little bit and not talk about tactics right away because I don't
Okay,
like
good.
to talk about that quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and share screen also. And what I am going to share is essentially what the model looks like of when you're building your plan and putting everything together. So can everybody see this lovely geometric, kindergarten level blocks that I have going on here? Yeah, thumbs up. All right, cool. So as Kelly and Allison have already mentioned, the top things that you really want to focus on first before you really get into your marketing is your brand and your message, your essence and your value, and the way you convey that essence and value and staying true to those. When you're actually putting together your marketing plan, this is where we're going to stay really in this area right here. And just kind of as a side note, when I work with clients, I prefer that they stop and get this part up here done first before they even venture into the marketing plan, because you need to really know who you are and what your message is before you go deeper in. So one of the first things that we need to talk about when we're putting our plan together, whether it's an annual plan or an individual campaign, is what are your goals? And if I ask you right now, what are your goals? I'm going to guess a lot of you are going to say increase revenue. Yay. Okay, what does that mean? You need to be very specific in what you're talking about. If your goal is revenue, are you talking about increasing revenue from existing customers, from new customers, from old customers? What is it you're trying to do? If your focus in marketing is more around building your social media presence, is it around building your referral network? What are those goals? What are those specifics? And we all know the whole the SMART goal system. So really think about that when you're putting your goals together here. And that's really what you want to do before you go further on in here. Now I'm going to use some jargon. I'm going to use KPI, which Kelly totally called out as jargon, but I will tell you what that means. So that's okay. So once you have your goals, you're going to determine your KPI, which in essence is your key performance indicators. So just like what you're trying to accomplish and how you're going to measure that, because what you don't measure doesn't get accomplished. That's the key thing right there. You have to know what it is that you want to get and how to get the information to know whether you're making it or not. So just for grins, let's just say somebody wants to look at growing revenue. Okay, what percent and by who? All right, so we're going to grow our revenue 10% by existing customers by upgrading them to this new product we're going to be launching. Cool. We're getting closer to what our KPIs are going to look like. You want to determine those early on so you know exactly what you should be tracking and build your baseline metrics. And if you have somebody who's really strong in analytics, this is the time you really want to bring them in, because this stuff is golden and you will appreciate having more information later on. The next level that you want to take is looking at your targets and tactics. So as both Kelly and Allison mentioned, people think marketing and they think, oh, social media, websites, advertising. Yeah, that's all of that stuff here. But it's kind of like the playground that you get to go to after you know what you're going to be doing. So let's go ahead and put that off first. Let's talk about it this way. It's more about the crayons in the crayon box after you get your coloring book, okay? So your coloring book is your guideline as far as what you're going to be doing. You want to think about who your targets are. And another common thing I hear from business owners is they say, well, everyone's my target. Everyone can use my product. Well, if that's the case, good for you. I hope you have the everlasting budget to go with supporting all those tactics that you're going to need to hit all of those targets. So Allison's going to talk about budget in a little bit, but bottom line is, unless you have an unlimited budget, you really need to tailor down your targets as much as possible. And she's mentioned things like demographics and psychographics and all of those types of things. There's a million ways you can look at the demographics to get to the people that you really want to reach. If you're newer in the situation, a real quick, easy way to do this is look at your existing customer base, find their commonalities. What is it about them that makes them unique and special and likely to use your product? And then you want to take that and then extrapolate that out to get bigger targets. When you start looking at your tactics, when you pick tactics, do the research on your target and what resonates with them and where they hang out. one of the things that I see a lot is, the owner mentality of, well, I like this TV station, so I want to buy that station. Well, that's great. But if your target audience doesn't watch that station, you're essentially just flushing that money away. So really look into who your target is, what they consume, where they hang out, where they go organically, and that's where you really want to target your tactics into. For a lot of people, social media might be an option because it's cheap and easy to manipulate and change on the fly, and that's great. But again, make sure you're targeting within your social media tactics and even using the right platforms. When we start looking at planning overall, one of the big recommendations I have, and I'm sure the other ladies do as well, is build your plans for at least 6 to 12 months out. Schedule all your tactics, and of course, things are going to change. And I believe Kelly mentioned that the marketing fundamentals don't change. How you react and how you use them in a post-COVID situation is what matters. So does your target necessarily change? No, but how you hit them will. All these people that were driving to and from work are no longer seeing billboards, they're no longer getting drive time radio, they're probably not tuning into the news the way they used to anymore, it's maybe even more. So how are you going to hit these people at home now? So it's really the mindset of, it's always about the prospect, it's always about the target. What need can you help them with, and how can you reach them in a way that's organic to them? So that's really what targets and tactics are about. The timing element here is, depending on the type of business you have, if you're in production for a new product, what does that timing look like? If you're a community or a service-based organization, what else is going on in the community that you could tie into? Are there big national things like, for example, Balloon Fiesta? Is that a tie-in for your company to really sort of amp up your efforts? And do you want to have things done at that time? Or do you want to wait until, June, because there's a certain theme month that's going on? So timing really is a factor that you need to plan into your long-term vision. And then these last two here, and I know we're going through this really fast because there's a lot to talk about. These are the two things, internal marketing and retention, that I feel like are kind of like the unwanted stepchildren of tactics. So please, I encourage and implore all of you, love these two little children. What internal marketing really does is, it's one thing to spend all this effort notifying the people of the world, your prospects, your targets, all these people, all the wonderful things that you have. If you don't let your employees know, you're doing yourself such a disservice. There's two reasons for that. One of the main ones is, there is nothing more heartbreaking than spending millions of dollars or thousands of dollars or even hundreds of dollars, putting all this effort out there. You have a client or a prospect come to get your service or product, and your employee knows nothing about the messaging or promotion or whatever that was out there. So all that effort has been completely washed away. Keep them aware, keep them informed. The other thing is, the more you empower your internal employees, and if you're a solopreneur or a really, really small business, consider your really close circle network of business partners as your internal marketing. The more you engage them in what you're doing and how you are a solution to the problems that your potential clients have, the more you're allowing them to be ambassadors for your brand and for your product. So really take the time to focus on this. It's free, it could go really far for you, and if you don't do it well, it could actually hurt you. The final thing is retention. There's so much effort put on getting new customers in. We always want new customers. We always want more, that sometimes we forget to appreciate the current customers that we have. And when we look at the ROI, you're looking at, I think it's 3 to 4 more times more expensive to bring in a new customer than it is to keep a current one happy. So if you're really tracking the metrics, and if you really care about that revenue, because of course that's what everybody wants, what are you doing on the retention side to make sure you maintain as much of that revenue? So keep those things in mind. Now, when we talked about pre-COVID versus post-COVID, again, this is the framework that needs to follow, that you need to follow. It's the individual components and boxes that you may tweak and manipulate to make sure that you're handling your customers' needs properly. But within all of these things, just as branding and message are the 2 primary features you need to have established first, your foundation in everything that you do needs to be clear, concise, and consistent, as Kelly mentioned. Clear in your goals, concise in your messaging, concise in your use of budget and targets, consistent in all of these factors. So if you just need a real quick cheat sheet of what you need to be doing, this is going to be what can help you. So that's the end of my little Lego box presentation here. So I know we need to talk about budget, because budget is always a big deal. So Allison, if you want to go in the budget, it's all yours.
Diane, thank you. I was listening intently. You always bring up really good points. And what I love about your work is you're so structured in all the ways that I don't like to be. So thank you. You're a good compliment.
That's why we work
But
well together.
speaking of structure, budgeting, because TAN has a lot of financially minded people in it, right? Jonathan and Tammy and all you guys, David Hansen, all you guys that love to do numbers, Priscilla. Here's the sandbox for you guys to understand and help your clients understand what they need to spend in order to achieve their goals, which Diane was very clear that we need those measurable goals in order to reach them. So there's actually a formula, and we're going to give you a takeaway at the end of this program today, where I've also included a couple of links where you can get all of the numbers that you need to do your crunching that you like to do. And there's still going to be some mystery around it. There's still going to be some mystery around the numbers. We're going to talk about wild card scenarios and so forth. But there is a basic formula. And it's a little bit complicated, but I don't think anybody in the room is going to have any trouble with the calculations once you have the multipliers to go by, or the percentages to go by. So you start with your sales projections on an annual basis, and then you calculate the amount needed for marketing based on a percentage of that figure. So you've got to do your business planning, right? That's very important. Any marketer that you sit down with is going to want to know what your business plan looks like. And if you don't have one, we're going to help you come up with some of those key pieces that are important in terms of metrics that marketing can help with, right? And in order to find out what you should spend on that, we need to understand what your sales projections are. So the percentage that you use depends on a variety of factors, including the kind of business that you're in or industry that you're in, the size of your business, what the competitive environment looks like, where you are in your growth stages, your profit margins, et cetera. And again, we're going to give you some detail on that so that you can actually run these numbers yourself for the different kinds of businesses that you're involved with, including your own. So some businesses will get by with a marketing investment of 7 or 8% of gross revenues. And Tammy McCarty, I think, will bring that down to 6% at times, but somewhere in that range, 6, 7, 8% for an established business. If the established business has stable revenues and isn't looking for a ton of growth, they might get away with 2 to 5% of revenue for a normal year. And again, normal year being the key word. So during the brand building years, if you're looking at startups, I know a lot of people in the room, Craig and so forth, are in those circles where they're advising people or investors who are looking at startups, minimum of 20% in the first few years, and likely higher, as high as 40%, which is huge, obviously. And it's exactly because businesses don't spend enough, especially small businesses, startups in the first few years, that's when most small businesses fail, because they're not doing enough to do the strategic work, the tactical work to make sure the business gets launched properly. So that's huge. Also consider that if you have a new product or service line in an established business, but a new product or service line, you have to kind of treat that as a little mini startup of its own. So you're also going to need a bigger budget to get that off the ground, right? It could be, again, 20 to 40%, maybe more in the 20% range if your business is established, but you want to bring something new to market. A lot of people in the pandemic have had to find new lines of business, right? Which means you have to treat that new line of business as sort of a startup on its own. So with all of these numbers and the formulas that we're going to give you in mind, I'm going to throw a wild card scenario out there for you to consider. It would never, ever happen, but let's just think about what this might do to your marketing strategy and your budget. So imagine that this worldwide plague comes along and it shuts down entire sectors of the economy and other sectors flourish. That would never happen, but what if it did? It seems like that would definitely change the math, and we'd have to think about our marketing budgets. It's likely that it would also change your marketing strategy. So what marketers like to say when you ask them a question about their marketing, they're going to tell you, Diane, Kelly, back me up, Lori, it depends, right? There are no hard and fast rules in marketing or the budgeting, but there are principles that have consistently proven to be effective over time. So if you want, if you want to build your business, we recommend that you get into your marketing mindset and use these tools that we've been talking about throughout this little presentation today in a very disciplined way. We want you to make a plan, but don't be afraid to take risks and stand out. So we've come up with some key points. Kelly, Diane, and I came up with our top 10 marketing tips, and we're going to show that to you. I think Kelly's putting the document into the chat right now.
Just put the link into the chat so that everyone can have it offline as well.
Those are basically some reminder notes about the things we talked about today. And we've also included those resources so you can think about your budget allocation for your marketing function. And we're hoping, we had a lot of fun putting this together, and we're hoping you find it very helpful. I think we're going to open it up for questions, and Anne is going to moderate that part. And then Diane, Kelly, and I will stay afterward for those who want to stick around for some more questions or to talk about your one-pager, which is something that I think Priscilla or somebody's going to talk about, a new feature of the TAN website where you can do a little marketing for your own business right there on the TAN website.
Thank you, Allison. So far, we only have 2 questions in the chat. So this is the time for people to, I'm going to put this on my gallery view so I can see everybody. This is a time for people to speak up once I call on these 2 people. The first one is Priscilla. She has a question about differences before and after COVID in marketing. Priscilla?
Sure. I'm at the outset, you talked about marketing after the time of COVID. And I remember one of you saying that there was, you might need to target people in a different way. Instead of a billboard, maybe you have to do something online. Are there other things that would drive changes to pre and post COVID world?
I'll jump in if you don't mind on that one. I think one of the biggest things, and Kelly can absolutely jump in, is anytime you're trying to reach your client with whatever it is your product is, at the end of the day, you're servicing a need for them. One of the biggest shifts that we saw was people's needs before COVID and then after COVID. So we went from a place where everything was kind of a want and a luxury and fun filled to a place of, I need safety, I need security, I need to know my family's going to be okay, I need to know I have a job. That was probably one of the biggest mind shifts that happened in the consumer world. And that would be a place where your messaging, while still upholding the essence of your brand and your values, really needs to shift to let your customers know that you, one, understand what they're going through, you can appreciate it, and you're there to help and support them. So the messaging is key. How you deliver it, again, we talked about the different tactics and those kinds of things, and those are going to shift. But those are probably some of the bigger issues. Kelly, did you want to jump in on it?
No, that's absolutely right. And in addition to those things that Diane just talked about, we did identify other needs, though. We need our homes to be those places of safety. And because of that, we have been doing things to our homes to make them more comfortable. We have been putting in big patios. The landscaping industry has gone crazy this past year, both the do-it-yourself industry and the do-it-for-you, like the landscaping companies. So we want our outdoor environments in our own little backyards or our big backyards, depending on how big or small they are. We want those to be places of refuge. And so those industries have flourished. Restaurants, on the other hand, have just taken a hit that's been unprecedented in the world. But the ones that have pivoted and been able to provide delivery or catering or curbside pickup have been the ones that have survived. And, I'm here in Santa Fe, which has a lot of very high-end fine dining restaurants. Some of them just shut down and said, we'll be back when we can serve you in person. But some of them have started offering other ways to get their food to you. It might be a completely different concept, or it might just be, we're going to sell you all the groceries that you need to make this meal in your own home. And so they have been able to survive. So that's going to be different once we can all comfortably go out to eat. Will people still go out to eat as much anymore? I don't know. restaurant dining for many people is a social activity, and it doesn't really matter much what they're eating. It's that they're with other people. So maybe that's a message that when we can go back to restaurants, that restaurants actually start saying, come, be safe, be social here.
One of the things that I also just throw in there is keep in mind that people are emotional creatures. And so you need to understand the emotional need as well as the practical need. So whether it's bringing back a sense of normalcy, I'm seeing that kind of as a trend now in some of the markets out there of bringing back normal while still maintaining safety. It's keeping your finger on the pulse of how your current customers are doing and what their needs are, and applying that to your prospects and what you can do to one, help them. It's, again, I guess what I'm trying to get across is don't forget the human touch point element. Always have the analytical sense there too, but there's that human element there. It's kind of going back to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and where those elements are at. That very much applies to marketing, as far as if security is covered, then we look at safety, then we looked at socialization, or whatever how the hierarchy goes. If those initial needs aren't being met, then you're not going to get anywhere. So you just need to make sure that you understand where they are emotionally and mentally as well.
Okay, thank you on that question. That was very complete. Did you want to add anything, Allison?
I do not.
Okay. So now I have a question from Meredith, and that has to do with the budgets, applying projections to nonprofit setting. And Allison, I think you were the one who covered budgets before. Meredith, can you please ask the question?
Hi, everybody. My name is Meredith. I work for a cultural nonprofit in Santa Fe, and a lot of our budgeting or a lot of our funding comes from foundations and grants. So how could you talk to me a little bit about how to talk about budgeting for marketing, like using a sales projection kind of idea, but in a setting that's not, product based, that's more like, where, I guess that's sort of my question.
No, makes a lot of sense. And I think if you simply translate your fundraising goals to sales projections, there's your answer. Does that make sense, Meredith?
Short and sweet.
Well, you always have an income goal, right? Revenue is revenue, whether it's through products or services or fundraising or whatever. So I'm not as involved in the nonprofit world as I was at one time, but as a marketer, I would say that the principle is the same. And when you look at those articles that are included in the top 10 one sheet that we're giving out here, you'll see that it will also depend on, one of the things we know about COVID is nonprofits took a big hit, and so your marketplace is much more competitive. So you're competing with other nonprofits for those same dollars. And because the economy got shaky for a long time, you don't necessarily have the ease of, or the, the willingness to give that maybe you did in a pre-COVID world. So Kelly is nodding, and maybe Kelly, you have some additional experience with your nonprofit base.
Sure. And first of all, I have to give a huge shout out to Meredith. The nonprofit she works for, if I can say that, Meredith, is the School for Advanced Research here in Santa Fe, which has done a bang up job of pivoting during COVID. They've actually gained membership. They've gained people at their events, which are now all online, which they weren't before. They were often just available to people here in Santa Fe. Now their audience has actually expanded to be anywhere you have an internet connection, which has done a lot for the organization in terms of gaining membership, in terms of getting audience to their programs, which is amazing. And it's that kind of pivot that that ultimately is doing a lot of good for a lot of nonprofits. If museums, educational institutions, if they can put their programs online, they will reach more people and eventually be able to raise more money because they are expanding their audience in a way that they hadn't before. Now, for organizations that are really local, that provide services to local people only, they've also had to get creative during these COVID times. And if I could just give a plug for something that I'm going to be watching this weekend, is the Food for Love concert event that is benefiting food banks in the state. Just Google Food for Love New Mexico, you'll find it. It's a free event to attend, but they would ask that you give some money in order to watch these performers perform and hear from people who've been impacted by food insecurity and the organizations that help alleviate that. This is a really innovative way to bring what might have just been a local fundraiser to a really big audience. So when nonprofits look at things like that, just like a for-profit business, the only difference between a for-profit and a nonprofit business is what you do with your profit at the end of the day. Nonprofits put it back into programming. For-profits give it out as dividends or bonuses or raises. So I guess my point here is, like Allison said, marketing for nonprofits isn't a whole lot different than marketing for businesses. And the ways that nonprofits pivot isn't a whole lot different from for-profit businesses either.
If I can add something to the budgeting, I spent years in corporate environments, and if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of budgets, analytics are your way to go. So what I mean by that is, as you're doing your marketing plans, you should be tracking what your results are. You should be tracking what you spent on that. You should be able to look back and be able to say, all right, I spent this much money and I got this many new clients, or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Depending on how long you've been in business, you should be able to have a track record of that and be able to historically look back and say, all right, on average, I spent, $1,000 marketing money to gain every new client. If my goal for this next year is to get 6,000 clients, then that is my budget. So that would be a starting point of looking at whatever analytics and metrics that you already have on hand, and then moving forward from there. The other way you can also do it is build out your dream marketing plan. Build it out. Everything that you think that would help you, build it out, see what that's going to look like. And then when you get over the sticker shock, start peeling away the things that, okay, maybe that's not as critical, or maybe I don't get as big of a response as I would like to, and just kind of move back to where you do have a number that you can safely sell to the other stakeholders in your business.
Okay, so I'm thinking that there are some other questions that are percolating in the group, and if you could put your hand up on the thing that is connected to participants, that would be really helpful. Then I can call on you as I see the hands go up. But if I miss you, please work at getting my attention in some way.
I think we have a room full of marketing experts. Congratulations. Priscilla, do you want to talk about the one pager in the website?
Sure, but can I ask a question first?
Of course.
My question is, if you are, say, a retail store, is it fair to assume that if you pay more for rent to be at the right place, that you can potentially pay less on true marketing?
I'd say yes, if you're relying on foot traffic, right? But if your business is closed because of a pandemic and you haven't invested in a robust website or social media presence in order to get the attention of people who might be your customers who can't physically come to your location, then you're screwed.
The other thing to tag on what Kelly just said is you should always have a multi-tactical campaign at play and never rely on just one tactic. So I'd be hesitant to say yes to your question.
I'm going to go, yeah, it matters. It's going to affect what you need to earmark in your budget for advertising if you do have a great location. I would say for a consumer business, yeah.
And you want me to go ahead and share my desktop?
Well, for those who can stay, we do have a new marketing opportunity for every TAN member, and it's a great way to put and for everybody else as well, it's a great way to put what we talked about today into practice for your business. Like right now, today, by putting up a one-page summary or description of your business that gets to the bones of the things that we talked about today, the offering that you make to others, and allows other members of the organization or other contacts that you have to make good referrals to you. And Priscilla has done some work around putting one together. She worked with Kelly. I have one. I think Kelly and Diane both have one. Bob Mason has one. It's really worth putting together a succinct one sheet that you can then send out to people after you've had a meeting with them, a 4x, a 1x, casual conversation, so they have a better understanding of what it is that you offer and who they could best refer to you. And we do have a new opportunity to put that on the website under your profile. So Priscilla, sure, if you'd like to show that, perhaps anybody who's left would like to take a little time to work on theirs, not necessarily right here, right now, but here's an idea of a lovely one-page summary of Priscilla's business. And do you want to tell us how you came about putting that together with Kelly's help, Priscilla?
So I was listening to these explain all these things, and we started talking about how beneficial it would be to have a place on the website, on the Trusted Advisor Network website, in our member profiles to be able to post a one-pager that would further our ability to have people find us and find out what we do. So I roughed something out, and unlike Kelly, I do not know a lot of words. So I use Kelly quite often for a host of things that I do. So I sent her this language that she then reworked and put into something that would be short and sweet and allow people to understand what I do. And then at the bottom down here, I've provided a link to my website where I can, where I post my transactions and valuations and work that I do. On the TAN website, if you log in and you want to, you can go and edit your member profile, you'll see a place for this to be uploaded. So I've done that, and I think several others have, and I'm encouraging members to participate because it's just one more way that, one, you get a link to your website, but also if somebody's looking you up at that location, they're going to be able to find you and find more about you. An email will be going out to members about this opportunity, but we just wanted to let you know that it was available.
It's a good opportunity to do the exercise, take your mind through all the processes that we talked today and put it into a one-page summary with perhaps some bullet points, which do tend to get people's attention. They can understand in a few bullet points what it is you do. You can encapsulate that. Does everybody, Priscilla, can we look back at the room again? Is there anybody that already has one of these and you find it to be helpful? You'd like to share about your experience, how you use it and so forth? Who doesn't have one? Ah, and do you think you should? Well, it's a great opportunity to take the process that we talked about today and promote your own business with it, especially within the framework of, you know, the TAN methodology. So we encourage everybody to do it, and you know who to reach out to should you need help with yours.
I'm just gonna put I just put the link to the top takeaways from each of our presentations in the chat again, in case you missed it and don't want to scroll up, but that document is available. If you, for some reason, don't get it or can't find it or can't get access to it, let someone know, me or Diane or Allison or Priscilla or Anne, let us know and we can get you the document in a different way.
Thank you so much. This has been an awesome presentation by Kelly Kepke, Allison Ray, and Diane Villegas. They are our seasoned marketing experts, and we are thrilled to have another seasoned marketing expert, Lori Shaw, attending. And I see that Diana Atha has a question. Unmute yourself, Diana.
I didn't have a question. Thought I was clapping. Sorry.
Oh, you probably were. Yes. Okay, thank you so much.
Great,
And
great presentation.
if the marketing panel would like to stay for a few minutes to debrief afterwards, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and just a reminder too that this is being recorded, and once Anne edits it and gets it up on the Trusted Advisor Network website, it'll be available. So if you came in late and missed the beginning, or if you had, obviously if you left early, you're not here to hear me say this, but if you had to leave early, it'll be available and you can catch the end. So know that you can definitely access it at a later time.
Thank you for your attendance, everyone. It was a pleasure. And have a wonderful rest of your day.